Knowledge without desire is sterile. Consider Lucifer. He knew God more than any other angel, and yet what good did it do him? Because he did not have the desire to embody that knowledge. Knowledge without desire is useless. Okay? Actually, it's dangerous. Jesus says in Scripture, in 2 Gospels, that those who knew the Father's will but failed to do it will be given more stripes than those who did not know the Father's will and failed to do it. So knowledge brings with it responsibility.
For the first video of this year, I thought it'd be a great idea to kick things off with a compilation of priests covering a variety of topics, and all of them really helpful. So without wasting any more time, let's start with this one on forgiveness.
Can we still be healed by Jesus even if we can't forgive the person who caused our injuries? Here's what I would say. No, obviously it's a block. If you're not forgiving, forgive us our trespasses, we forgive those who trespass against us. But I would say if you're putting that question there, what it probably means you're still feeling some anger and resentment about it, which I understand. I think the Lord understands that. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean having a warm feeling about somebody. I don't think I have a warm feeling about Adolf Hitler, but I forgive him. It's not my job to judge Adolf Hitler. So just because you don't have a warm feeling about the person who harmed you doesn't mean you can't say a prayer. So what I want you to do right now, that whoever wrote that, is I want you to say a Hail Mary for that person, even though you might say it with gritted teeth. So say a little prayer for that person. It'll free that person. It'll free you too. So do it for yourself.
As usual, these days I always include real-life case studies, and I'll try to relate those case studies to one of the clips of the priests in the compilation. So for this video's case study, it's going to be this one. And it's obviously demonic, but still he didn't think so.
That's why I said when I did ayahuasca,
How was that?
It was incredible. I did it 2 years ago.
No fear? I have fear because I feel like can it mess with your brain? Like, can it?
I had fear the first day, but the first day it told me everything was going to be fine.
It told you?
Oh yes. Like that spirit, Mother Aya, God, I don't know what you call it, but it's really talking to you. Like it's really, like I can't even say voices in your head. Like you're having full-blown conversations with this spirit, with this entity, and this spirit is willing to show you whatever you're willing to look at. And once you're there with it, it's not going to let you look away. Like, you know how sometimes you have those glimpses of things that you try to suppress in your mind? It's like, nope, like, yes, look at this, look. And you gonna have to deal with it. And I remember I did a 3-day retreat. So on the second day is when it like really kicked my ass. And that's when I came up with the whole concept of, stop lying to yourself and stop volunteering those lies to other people. And that's when the whole book, Get Honest or Die Lying. And that's when I was like, either you're going to be all the way honest about these experiences and these things that you've gone through, or, we're going to have to figure something else out. Mm-hmm. And it was that moment that really was like, okay, this is the real eye opener. Like this is, if I'm going to really live an authentic life, it's going to be from this point on. Mm-hmm. That's why this year is very important, because this is the year of the snake. 2025.
What does that mean?
It's the lunar and Chinese zodiac.
Wait, 2025?
2025 is the year of the snake. 2026 is the year of the horse. But 2025 is the year of the snake because we're supposed to be shedding all our old, old bad energy, the negative energy, the things that have caused you guilt, the things that you're insecure about. Like, this is the year that you're supposed to really, really, really let it all go. And it's about new beginnings and transformation. And in 2026 is the year of the horse, and you're supposed to get on that horse and, ride into your destiny.
One of the many priests that often talk about the demonic nature of Hollywood is Father Reehil, and it's not hard to prove what he said when they're openly admitting to practicing them, just like this one.
So when you say witchcraft, do I don't think people critically think about how much witchcraft and what witchcraft actually represents and what it means, right? When you say it to a person who understands occult knowledge, and when I say that, I just mean the things that most people don't study, right? There's so much going on that people don't understand. I'm a person who like to bring things to the light slowly, and I don't mind people judging it what they don't understand. It's fine. I'm here. I'm a teacher. I'm a student and a teacher at the same time. So what you saw me carrying was a staff with a bunch of crystals on it that all work to both protect, emit, pull in, and ground energy. So I had about 16 different crystals I had on the staff. I would say this to people. If you're ever unsure about something, just do your research. Do your research, because what you'll find is that there may be something that you connect with and you'll be like, you know, let me try this for myself. And it may be something that works for you. It helps you in life. And you'd be surprised what our ancestors were into, how they were protecting themselves during times of the dark ages, and how they were praying and what they were praying to, and how they were getting supported in a lot of ways. Like, we can't be scared of the knowledge that's actually ours and for us. That's what I will say. You know, we obviously when I grew up, everything was fearful. Everything was like, don't do that, nigga, you're gonna go to hell. Don't brush my feet with the spoon. Spit on the broom. Like,
yeah. Don't split the pole.
Don't split the pole. Don't, like, you give power to these things. Like, what are you giving it power for? It's just like, you gotta take the power back into your own hands. We have to do that, because I'm gonna say this. There's a lot of witchcraft, because witchcraft can be both good and
Good and bad.
Good and bad. There's a lot of witchcraft that's performed on our people that we don't even know it. But because we're scared of it, we won't even study it to understand how to undo it that's been done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the opposite. I grew up in that mindset, and then when I was 23, I became a mystic, and I started practicing the opposite way, and it's been changing my life ever since. And I promise you, in 10 years from now, you're gonna look and see the same person and be like, how the is he doing that? So if you want to say it's witchcraft, say it's witchcraft. But if you want to say it's a person who understands and studies, then that's I think that's the right way to go about it.
And he's being open about it, but my question is, how many are out there with record-selling albums that do the same thing but are not being open about it in the public? For the next clip, I want to share this clip of Father Iannuzzi with you. And just letting you know in advance, I have a few sessions planned with Father Iannuzzi already, and I'll try my best to ask as many questions as I can during those sessions with him.
See, there's no merit in action unless one turns to something that he judges to be good in order to will the good. That's where merit is born. From it, willing the good one intends. Because the will may choose, the power of choosing implies freedom, right? The animals do not have a system of merit. The animals do not deliberately choose the good through volition and rational reflection as we do. They serve us. We do not serve them. Yes, we treat them with respect. But let us not forget, like the angels, animals serve us. The letter to the Hebrews says we do not serve angels. Angels serve us. By the way, this is one of the reasons why Lucifer rebelled. He was given, according to St. Irenaeus, knowledge that God would raise human nature higher than that of the angels, and that angels would serve humans, and Lucifer refused to serve this plan of God. Now, the angels, therefore, serve us, but they respect us and we respect them, we pray to them, right? Same thing with the animals. Of course, the animals are not the same in dignity as angels. They have no rationality, no volition like the angels and humans do, but nonetheless, we do not serve them despite what some people may think. I know we're living in an age of the reign of animals, right? This was an expression, by the way, used by Our Lady of La Salette. She said that that in the end times, there would be the reign of animals, right? Now, oftentimes, with all due respect, I respect animals. God gave them to us as a gift, and we should treat them as such. But there can be an excess in attention to animals. For example, today animals have more rights than humans. Consider abortion. It is a crime to kill an animal. It is not a crime to kill a child in the womb of a mother. How about that, huh? This is the day and age in which we live, where animals have more rights than the defenseless, innocent, unborn children. Jokingly, I heard a person watching a man walk his dog say, "The dog has his master well trained." Well, that's not far from the truth in some cases. Now, freedom brings with it the ability to acquire merit and demerit through willing the good or willing the bad. Like the human intelligence of which freedom is a consequence, human freedom is limited. This limitation derives from the influences of the feelings, the emotions, and the passions. Only acts that are perfectly free are said to be so because They are perfectly independent of such influences. The discursive character of the human intelligence, which is deliberation, hampers the freedom to decide. This discursive character. And this is the result, or I should say the consequence of original sin. That is, this inability to see all the ends of our actions, whereby we have a discursive dialogue internally in choosing the good and avoiding evil. It doesn't come immediately.
And as for the next clip, this is a very good reminder for everyone listening about not being afraid when it comes to the devil.
They often say, well, the picture flew off the wall, and they say, oh my gosh, what should we do? I say, well, put it back. And the idea is that, Satan tries to manipulate people by frightening them. And fear of Satan gives him more control. We've got several people who are not liberated because they're too frightened of Satan. You've got to trust in Jesus. Satan is a dust bunny compared to Jesus. He's nothing. But he tries to frighten people. And I would say he's a thug. He tries to frighten people. And that's why it's so important to have a strong faith. He said, don't let him bug you too much.
The next clip is a really interesting story shared by Father Martins. Someone called him, and that person was very upset with Father Martins over his position on abortion. Listen to this.
And a phone call came in, and I didn't recognize the number, but I answered it. And this was an individual, it was an older gentleman, a senior citizen, who was calling from the East Coast, and he was complaining about how political I was in a teaching that I gave at a parish event that he attended. And I said, how was I being political? What did I say? And he said, well, you endorsed a particular political party. I said, I don't recall ever having done that, but can you please refresh my memory of what you think you heard me say? And he goes on to state that I condemned abortion. And because only one political party has a membership that largely does that I was endorsing that party. And so the context of this, and so certainly I do talk about abortion. So at every one of my relic expositions, the Holy See grants a plenary indulgence. They grant, so there's a decree that was issued by the Vatican for every time there's a relic exposition of the ministry that I run, Treasures of the Church, that there's a special and unique plenary indulgence that is given. And so I explain what a plenary indulgence is. It's the complete remission of the temporal punishment due to sin. So in other words, the state of one's soul is purified such that one's time in purgatory, if you will, is removed. And there are conditions attached to that. So sacramental confession, reception of the Eucharist within 20 days before or after, and prayers for the Pope. So those are three easy enough things to do. But the fourth condition is an ending of all relationship with sin. So having an intention to never sin again. And that is sufficient to grant the plenary indulgence. But what might preclude that intention? Well, if you are planning on doing something sinful, and of course, this doesn't preclude the possibility. So some sins are addictive. So in other words, if one would be using hard drugs or some addictive sin, it doesn't mean the addiction has to be gone. What it means is that there's an intention, that there's a desire that is whole and total to not fall into that addiction again, even though one might, but that doesn't preclude the reception of the indulgence. Among the conditions that I state that people often forget is, how do you vote at the polling station? Do you put life, human life, as the number one issue? Because there is no other issue that even comes close. And so he said, there I am. There I was endorsing a political candidate. And I said, I'm doing nothing of the sort, but I will tell you this. If the issue of life is not on the top of your list, and if you ever hope to face the Lord and have a clean soul, well, you've just precluded it. You know, and how do you think, and he disagreed. He said, look, I believe that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. And I said, you know, that last quality, rare, why would you want it to be rare? If there's nothing morally wrong with it, why ought it to be rare? And he said, well, you know, you don't know what it's like for what a woman who is pregnant. I said, no, I don't, but that's beside the point. I also don't know what it's like to be owed $250,000, but that doesn't give me a right to kill the person who owes me that money. I mean, I don't have to be in that position to know that it is morally wrong. I don't have to be in that position to know that such an action on my part would be sinful. And so he, you know, every time he was pressed to it, he just kind of slid it away. And I said, look, pal, if you ever hope, and at your age, and I could tell by his voice that this was not a young person, if you're going to face God one day, and you're going to, and it won't be long, that day is not long away. And if you think the Lord is going to let you into heaven simply because you have a nice haircut, or simply because you were a nice guy to your friends, or you were good to your family, you know, the Lord even says, thieves treat one another well. If you think he's going to admit you into heaven while you sanction the dismembering and killing of his children, you have another thing coming. And he kept trying to make a point. And at a certain point, what I said is, look, this conversation has gotten boresome and it's over as far as I'm concerned. But your best days are behind you, not in front of you, as long as you keep this position. And I hung up on him.
I always love it when these priests share stories about guardian angels. So here's a great one from Father Reehil.
In a similar way, there was a group of women. They were very loyal fans of a priest that was in Italy, and they had learned that the priest was very sick, and he wasn't coming out of his monastery for, I guess it had been some time, that he'd been shut up in there and wasn't seeing people. And they thought it could be the end of his life, and they very much wanted to see him if he, perhaps if he was going to die. So they decided they're going to drive all night to get to this monastery. And they were going to, when they started out, whatever time it was, they realized they're going to arrive there very early in the morning. And, they were concerned about how are we going to let him know we're coming. And same thing. One of them said, let's send our guardian angels to tell him we're on our way. They were sort of like his spiritual daughters. And they sent their angels. And when they arrived and pulled up to the gates, that lock the monastery away from the rest of the world, the priest was sitting out there in a folding chair at the gate. And they pulled up and said, Father, what are you doing out here? We heard you were very sick. He says, no, I've actually been recovering the last week or so, and your angels informed me you were going to be here in the morning very early, so I decided I would come out to meet you. Well, how do you like that? I mean, just amazing.
And the following clip is a rather interesting one, and that question is, can we love the demons? Listen to this.
We can now look at St. Thomas's answer to the question about whether we should love demons. The thing about demons is that, like all angels, once they make a decision, their wills are so strong that they are incapable of changing their minds. This is very much unlike human beings, who are fickle and have weak wills, and so can change our minds here on earth. So once an angel turns to God, he cannot help but love God for all eternity. And when a demon has rejected God, he does so for eternity and will not change his mind. As a result, we cannot love the individual demon out of charity, because that demon has already rejected God and does not want the good of God, and so does not want to be in heaven. But when we love someone out of charity, we desire heaven for them. This then means we could never truly love demons with charity, because they could never receive the gift that loving someone with charity would wish for them. Likewise, it means that we could never have a true friendship with demons, since we can never love them with charity. Now we can nevertheless love the nature God gave to the demons, insofar as their natures give glory to God. St. Thomas writes, quote, in this way, too, we can love the nature of demons even out of charity, inasmuch as we desire those spirits to endure as to their natural gifts unto God's glory. End quote. However, This is love in a more technical sense, and we should recognize that in our everyday sense of love, we should not love demons. For due to their total rejection of God, they could never be our friends. But what about forgiving demons? When we forgive our fellow man, we do so because other humans are capable of repentance and still capable of being our friends. But with demons, friendship is not possible, so we do not need to forgive them in the way we forgive humans. However, we ought not to hold grudges against demons either. In fact, we should never address them in any way. We should always turn to God and let Him deal with them. God, who is the just judge, will make sure that their evil deeds will be justly punished.
I've been watching a ton of TikTok videos lately, and I'll pick out the ones that are relevant for our case studies. And one of the most popular topics people are teaching right now is how to open the third eye. But for this video, let's focus on how to close the third eye instead.
How do you close the third eye? First and foremost, by a definitive renouncement of the spirit of divination and the powers given by those demons. Definitive. In other words, it is not simply a person if you have the power already. We met, for example, a case of a dentist who uses this power for her practice. And she said that this power helps her help a lot of people. So in the pretext of helping a lot of people, what does she do? A patient comes into the clinic. She uses that power by knowing whether the person has diabetes or heart disease to help the person so that she will not do anything that might harm the person. Is that bad? Her intention was good. However, the power is not from God. So one day she decided, when she learned about this thing, something happened to her in her family. She approached the office of the Archdiocese of Manila Office of Exorcism. She wanted now to close her occult third eye. However, little did we know that her intention was she did not want the demon controlling the ability, but she still wants the power. So when she made her renouncement of the occult power of divination and the spirit, even though she was saying the words in her heart, she only wants the demon out, but the power remains. So one day, she thought everything was okay. She made the rite of closing the occult third eye, and she thought everything was okay. Then one day, her dental chair elevated. And you know how heavy that is. And that dental chair was thrown at her. She had a video of it. And her assistants saw it. And they were so afraid. What happened? The spirit retaliated. Because while doing the exorcism on her, the spirit felt the power of the prayer and the pain. But it cannot leave because the woman wanted the power. The power and the one who gave the power are one and the same. You renounce the demon, you renounce the power. It cannot be half-half. That is why I said definitive renouncement of the spirit of divination and the powers given by those demons. If the person has become a medium, a demon that comes in and out will be commonly encountered and the battle will be long. Why? Because the medium is so used to entering and going of spirits. And so the spirit will just play. So you do an exorcism, the spirit will go out, but then after the exorcism, the spirit will come back because the person is a medium. Therefore, it is required total unconditional renouncement of the spirit of divination and its powers is necessary, without which no liberation can be achieved. In expelling the spirit of divination in a person deeply ingrained in the practice of the occult, possession will commonly occur. If the person has not devotedly prepared himself or herself spiritually. So this is the reason, don't be angry with us or the exorcist or the priest when you ask that you be prayed over immediately. Because if you are deep into the occult and you ask to be prayed over and you are not spiritually prepared, you may get possessed. And you don't want that. This happened to us, Father Joseph and I. It was the conference on the ministry of healing. There were many participants, about 400. And we talked about this and false charisms. And many people were reacting. They were probably angry with what we were saying. Only to find out half of the participants were witch doctors. Some of them were extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, involved in the ministry of healing of the Archdiocese. In other words, people go to the albularyo thinking that it is from God because he's a member of the parish healing ministry. Anyway, why am I telling you this? Father Joseph and I do not want to do ambush prayovers because we know of things, reactions. And there was this lady while we were going down. Monsignor Krickenbeck was there too. And then Father Joseph was talking with someone. And then there is this lady, little lady, old lady, came and got Father Joseph's hands. And Father Joseph was, resisting. No. And this lady placed his hands on her head. And once Father Joseph did this, of course, Father Joseph wanted to help the woman, prayed over her, and the woman started to scream and shake. She became possessed right there and then. We don't want that because the woman was not prepared. You have to prepare, especially if you're deep into the occult. You cannot just be prayed over just like that because that is also what albularios do. You don't need to repent. You don't need to go to confession. Just come and you get healed. No, that's not how we do it. We need to be prepared spiritually. Otherwise, the possibility of demonic retaliation and possession can occur.
And for the last clip of the compilation this time, let's listen to this clip of Father Iannuzzi, and I hope all of you have learned so much from this one.
St. John of the Cross, mystical doctor, he stated that the height of contemplation is interior aridity. What does that mean? It means that when the soul is stripped of all the warm fuzzies and consolations and niceties, it has to rely on pure faith, which John went through during his dark night. That is when God is flooding it with more grace than ever, John says. The soul does not think so because all it experiences is aridity. Mother Teresa went through this for almost 20 years before she went on to her eternal reward and even had to have an exorcism performed on her deathbed. And the devil was attacking her, obviously, because she was doing so much damage to his kingdom. Louisa went through this. She went through a 3-year period in her teen years where the devil intensely attacked her. Then it lessened until finally he was afraid to even approach her. But she did not cease to experience interior aridity, which is not always the fruit of diabolical attack. God allows this for our spiritual growth. Healing has really no place when it comes to divine love. With human love, yes. And oftentimes we cannot distinguish the two because, let's face it, we are human beings to whom a divine being communicates through our human vessel, the body with all its emotions, its proclivities, its affectivity, and the soul.
with its thoughts, its memories, its experience, and desires, and so forth. So even though they interpenetrate divine and human love, God perfects human love by stripping it of all non-essentials. And that sometimes is painful to us. And we feel that we don't love God in those moments because we're not feeling the consolations that he gave Louisa after she experienced hell. So he would bring her to the depths of hell to suffer the pains of hell, then would flood her with consolations. And then this seesaw effect, this oscillation of highs and lows, kept her growing. See, the soul is like a muscle. It cannot grow without resistance and without rest. It needs both. In order for the soul to grow fast, God will allow it to experience desolation, that's going uphill like Calvary, then consolation, going down, like coasting on a bicycle without pedaling. Then it has to pedal uphill. When a soul is like this, it's not growing. When a soul is on flat ground, it's not growing. But when the soul is going up and then going down, now it's growing. So the growth is an ascent like this. When it's going like this, it's not going up, it's going flat. And that's the key to the spiritual life. And John of the Cross knew this, Teresa of Avila knew this. This is why they talk of the different levels of purgation, illumination, unification, divinization. But when you don't feel the love of God, that does not mean you do not love God. And I will quote to you entry 800 from Saint Faustina Kowalska. And okay, there are two entries. One's 800, it talks about the intention to serve the Lord. Even if you don't feel anything, you're there, you will be rewarded as if your intention was fulfilled. Then in entry 628, he says, well, first Faustina says to Jesus, my divine master, you see very well that I feel no love for my enemies, and this troubles me. And Jesus said, it is not always within your power to control your feelings. You will recognize that you have love if, after having experienced annoyance and contradiction, you do not lose your peace, but pray for those who made you suffer and wish them well.
And that is it for the video this time, and I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. Anyway, if you like what we do and you'd like to support us, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching, and may God bless you.